In 2016, Japan already recognized Naoya Inoue as a remarkable figure, a youthful champion with unmatched precision and power. Yet on the global stage, he was still a name whispered more than shouted, a fighter of immense promise who had not yet reached the mythical pound-for-pound status he commands today. That spring night in Tokyo was meant to be another step forward, another test for the young prodigy as he defended his WBO super flyweight title. Across from him stood David Carmona, a Mexican challenger unknown to many casual fans but respected by insiders for his toughness, ring craft, and quiet resilience. The stage was set for a contest that would reveal not only Inoue's power but also his patience, his adaptability, and his evolution as a complete boxer. The opening moments of the bout were charged with a kind of nervous anticipation. The crowd, aware of Inoue's destructive tendencies, waited for the explosion that often came early in his fights. But Inoue, calm and poised, didn't rush. From the first bell, he began reading Carmona's rhythm, testing his guard with sharp jabs, feints, and subtle shifts in distance. His left hand probed at the Mexican's defenses, snapping up toward the head and then digging down to the body. Every movement was a message. Inoue was in control of the pace and space. Carmona, for his part, entered the ring with confidence. Ranked among the top contenders, he had no illusions about the challenge before him. He had studied the Japanese champion, analyzed his patterns, and promised himself that he would not be overwhelmed. The first round showed flashes of that determination. Carmona held a tight guard, moved laterally to avoid being trapped on the ropes, and countered when he could. Yet even in those early exchanges, there was an unmistakable difference in sharpness and intent. Inoue's punches landed with a crispness that echoed through the arena. His jab was fast and fluid, his right hand coiled like a spring. As the first round ended, the commentators noted that the champion had already begun imposing his will. It wasn't just about power, it was about presence. Inoue's command of distance forced Carmona to react rather than initiate. The Mexican's face, though calm, betrayed the mental strain of dealing with an opponent who seemed to anticipate everything. In the second round, Inoue's rhythm deepened. He began mixing his attacks with more creativity, doubling up the jab, following with the right to the head and the left hook to the body. Each punch had purpose. Even when it didn't land cleanly, it pushed Carmona backward or opened another angle. Carmona tried to answer with counters to the body, but Inoue's footwork neutralized them. He would step just outside range, let the punch glide by, and then re-enter the pocket with a sudden burst of offense. It was a masterclass in controlled aggression. Yet there was an unexpected twist brewing. Midway through the early rounds, Inoue appeared to injure his right hand, a subtle grimace, a brief shake of the wrist after a straight punch. At first, few noticed. But as the fight continued, the pattern became clear. He was throwing the right less frequently, relying heavily on his left. The commentary team picked up on it, and the crowd, too, began to sense something unusual. The monster who had so often ended fights with thunderous combinations was now forced to adapt. Instead of panic, Inoue displayed remarkable composure. He began to dominate the fight almost entirely with his left hand, jabs, hooks, uppercuts, and body shots. He used the punch like a conductor's baton, dictating every movement in the ring. The injury, if anything, revealed another dimension to his skill, the ability to think, adjust, and control without relying solely on brute force. Carmona, realizing the opportunity, grew bolder. In the middle rounds, he pressed forward behind his own jab, testing Inoue's defense and throwing right hands over the top. A few found their mark, drawing cheers from the crowd who appreciated the challenger's spirit. But every success was met with immediate retaliation. Inoue's left hand became a whip, cracking into Carmona's ribs and snapping into his jaw. The champion's timing was immaculate, slipping punches by mere inches and countering with precision. By the fourth and fifth rounds, the dynamic was set. Carmona was fighting valiantly but being systematically outboxed. The commentators praised his heart, noting how he absorbed shots that would have crumbled lesser men. His guard was solid, his movement intelligent, yet there was no mistaking who was in command. Inoue, even with one functional hand, was dissecting his opponent. The Japanese crowd responded with rhythmic applause, not just for power but for artistry. They were watching a young champion mature in real time, learning to win not only through destruction but also through discipline. Inoue's father and trainer, Shingo Inoue, shouted calm instructions from the corner, urging his son to keep controlling the pace, to use his left, and to wait for the right moments. The strategy was clear: don't force the knockout, let the fight unfold naturally. In the 6th round, Carmona had one of his best moments. He landed a left hook to the body and followed with a jab to the head, momentarily halting Inoue's advance. The champion nodded, acknowledging the shot, then smiled, a small but unmistakable sign that he was enjoying the challenge. Moments later, he retaliated with a blistering combination of lefts, finishing with a right hook that, though thrown cautiously, thudded against Carmona's temple. The crowd erupted, sensing a shift in momentum. Carmona survived the round, but the punishment was accumulating. His ribs were reddened from body shots, his breathing heavier. Still, he refused to yield. The commentators admired his resilience, remarking that even as blood tinted the water bottle he spat into between rounds, he continued pressing forward. It was the kind of toughness Mexican fighters are renowned for: pride, endurance, and defiance in the face of pain. Inoue, meanwhile, maintained his icy focus. By the 7th and 8th rounds, he was in total control of the ring geography. His movement was deliberate, his jab relentless. The right hand remained largely unused, but the left alone was enough to dominate. He worked high and low, drawing reactions from Carmona and exploiting the openings. The body shots, in particular, were devastating. You could hear them, dull, heavy thuds that made the audience wince. They were the kind of punches that didn't always drop an opponent instantly but drained their strength minute by minute. As the fight wore on, Inoue began to stand taller, his stance more upright, his composure absolute. There was a maturity to his demeanor, no wasted energy, no wild exchanges. He knew he was ahead on points, knew that the knockout might come, but didn't chase it recklessly. That restraint, rare in a fighter so young and so powerful, showed the makings of greatness. Carmona's corner urged him to take more risks. They reminded him that he was behind, that the only way to win was to go forward. He tried, lunging with his right hand, attempting to smother Inoue against the ropes, but each effort was met with precision counters. Inoue slipped and pivoted, firing back with sharp left hooks. The crowd, now fully behind the champion, roared with every exchange. By the 9th round, Carmona's pace slowed noticeably. The cumulative effect of body shots was undeniable. Still, he remained dangerous. A fighter fighting for pride is never to be underestimated, and Inoue knew it. He continued working methodically, touching Carmona with a jab, drawing him into traps. When Carmona threw, Inoue was already gone, only to reappear with another left to the body or head. The efficiency was mesmerizing. The 10th and 11th rounds showcased Inoue's complete control. With his right hand still limited, he managed the fight entirely through movement, angles, and a disciplined left. It was an astonishing display of ring IQ. The commentators, once concerned about the injury, now marveled at how Inoue had essentially fought an entire world title defense with one hand, and was winning every round. "He's a monster," one said, echoing the nickname that would come to define him. But tonight, he's a thinking monster. Carmona, though battered, never stopped trying. Even as his face swelled and his punches lost snap, he continued throwing. That stubborn defiance earned him respect. There were moments, brief but real, when he landed to the body or clipped Inoue with a jab, and the crowd, appreciating his courage, applauded him too. The fight had become something more than a simple domination. It was a showcase of two men's spirits, one ascending, one enduring. As the 12th and final round began, Inoue's corner reminded him to stay sharp and not to let pride override discipline. But the champion sensed the moment. After nearly 12 rounds of patient, one-handed control, he decided to let the right hand fly one last time. He started the round with his trademark left to the body, then came upstairs with a right straight that crashed through Carmona's guard. The impact was immediate. Carmona staggered, his legs buckling. Inoue followed with a left hook and another right, forcing the challenger to the ropes. The crowd rose as one, sensing the end. Carmona, somehow, stayed upright, refusing to fall. But Inoue's assault was relentless now, a flurry of punches, each one precise, each one thrown with intent. The referee hovered close, ready to intervene, but the Mexican's toughness carried him to the final bell. When it rang, both men lowered their gloves, breathing heavily. There was no need for words. The performance had spoken for itself. The judges' scorecards were a formality. All three awarded the fight to Naoya Inoue by wide margins. The crowd applauded not just the result but the artistry, the intelligence, and the resilience they had witnessed. It wasn't the kind of explosive knockout many had expected, but it was something arguably more impressive, a complete, controlled victory against a world-class opponent despite adversity. After the fight, Inoue admitted that he had injured his right hand early, perhaps in the second round. "It hurt every time I tried to throw it," he said with a wry smile. "So I had to rely on my left." His tone was humble, almost casual, but the performance was anything but ordinary. He had shown the world that he could win not only through destruction but also through mastery. For Carmona, the defeat was bittersweet. He had been outclassed, yes, but he had also proven his toughness to the world. He had taken the best the champion could offer, even a one-handed version of it, and lasted the distance. His stock rose in defeat, his name now associated with courage. For Inoue, the fight marked a turning point. It was the night he matured from a prodigy into a professional craftsman. The lesson was invaluable. Power alone would not carry him through every challenge. Skill, patience, and adaptability were equally vital. The right-hand injury forced him to think, to solve problems in real time, and to prove that his genius extended beyond raw athleticism. In retrospect, that 2016 fight was a glimpse of the champion he would become. In the years that followed, Inoue's reputation exploded. He unified divisions, conquered bigger names, and delivered the kind of knockouts that made him a global superstar. But those who watched him against Carmona understood that greatness is built in layers, and that sometimes the fights that don't end in fireworks reveal more than those that do. That night in Tokyo was not about a knockout, it was about evolution. It was about a young man discovering that his power was not only in his fists but also in his mind. Every jab, every slip, every adjustment spoke to a deeper understanding of boxing's essence. The monster was learning to control the rage within, to channel it, shape it, and release it only when necessary. When the arena lights dimmed and the crowd filtered out, Inoue stood in the center of the ring, his right hand carefully wrapped, his face serene. The cameras captured a quiet smile, the smile of a fighter who had just passed an invisible test. Behind him, his father embraced him, whispering something only he could hear. The future awaited, and Inoue, already a world champion, had taken another step toward immortality. Years later, fans would look back on the Carmona fight as a crucial chapter in the legend of Naoya Inoue. It was not his most violent victory, nor his most famous, but it was perhaps his most revealing. In that ring, with one hand compromised, he demonstrated the balance of violence and artistry that defines all great champions. He showed that even stripped of his greatest weapon, he could still dominate, still inspire awe, and still find a way to win. The bout also embodied the timeless contrast that makes boxing so compelling, the unstoppable force meeting the unbreakable will. Carmona's resistance gave Inoue's dominance meaning. It reminded everyone that greatness is not only measured by how easily you win, but by how you respond when things don't go perfectly. Inoue had faced adversity and turned it into a lesson. He had found calm within chaos. As the night ended, the Japanese press hailed him as the monster with a mind. The phrase stuck, not only because of his ferocity but also because of his intelligence. Every fight since has carried traces of that night, the precision, the patience, and the refusal to panic. And so, the 2016 clash between Naoya Inoue and David Carmona remains more than a title defense. It is a story of transformation, of a fighter learning the limits of his body and the vastness of his potential. It is the night the monster grew wiser, and the boxing world began to understand that it was witnessing the rise of something rare, not just a champion, but an artist.